Next principle that is about flexibility. Okay, so first we discussed about principles of learnability. That was the first category of principles. Second principle, flexibility, which is again uh, divided into number of sub principles. But first, flexibility already we discussed in brief what it is about. So it is referring to the multiplicity of ways in which the end user and the system can exchange the information with each other. Right? So are your interfaces that much flexible? That's what flexibility talks about. Among which very first is the dialogue initiative, principle of dialogue initiative. So what it is specifically, it measures the freedom from the system imposed constraints on input dialogue. Means is user having the freedom to initiate the interaction, or it is always the system who is initiating the interaction. That's why this principle can be measured into two terms: system preemptive versus user preemptive. Okay. Example: if I want to give, let's say, uh, if I want to maximize the user's ability to have the interaction, then I can design the interface mostly user preemptive. Means user will initiate the conversation, user will mostly have the control in the dialogue or the interaction. Okay, and in another case, system preemptive, every time system will initiate, system will ask the user to give next input, and based on the user's input, system will generate the output. Okay, but it's not always better to have the user preemptive systems, right? It should be balanced one wherever required, depending upon the priority. Let's take the example of aircraft, okay, plane and the pilot. So suppose uh, uh, pilot is about to land the aircraft, but in that aircraft the flaps are asymmetrically filled. Okay, so in that case, that aircraft should not allow the pilot to land it. Otherwise, what may happen? It may lead to some accident, right? Now, we will not go in technical details what is meant by asymmetrically felling of the flaps, right? Just try to understand that if it is the failure, then that aircraft is not in a situation to land safely. So in that case, the control should be at systems side, not user side. But otherwise, or in another side, if I give the example of the same thing for the user preemptive system, then uh, in the same aircraft, when pilot is having the control and there are lots of widgets, right? Then it is not possible for the pilot to control all of them every time, right? So in that situation, in that case, we can have it combination of system preemptive plus user preemptive. Some of the functions should be automated, right? Automated, and system should be able to handle at its own in that case. Okay. Next, principle of flexibility is having multi-threading in your interface or design. So already you all know what is meant by multi-threading, right? Performing more than one tasks at a time or doing parallel tasks at a time. So while discussing this multi-threading principle, we will talk about concurrent multi-threading, interleaving multi-threading, and multimodality. Okay, so basically it is talking about having ability of your system to give support to the user interaction for more than one task at a time. And that's what nowadays every system is doing, this multi-threading or multitasking or multi-programming. Okay. So when I talk about concurrent, it means simultaneously it is allowing to have a communication with the system. Right. When I say interleaved means uh, overlapping between tasks. Okay. If I am running this presentation, maybe parallelly I am doing some download from the YouTube, or maybe my Gmail box is open and some messages are uh, coming in my inbox, right? And some sound is there, or some notifications are there on my desktop, which is telling me the next message incoming is from whatever, right? Something like that. And when I talk about multimodality, so multimodality is nothing but having more than one channels of communication. Mode is nothing but having communication channel, and if I'm having more than one, then I can say it is multimodality. For example, to open any window, let it be of any application, right? So if I want to open that application or in window, either I can click on that icon, or if I know any keyboard shortcut, I can use that, or I can go to the menu and I can click on the open tab. Okay. For example, if I am working in a doc in a Word and I want to save that file. So if I know the shortcut, I can do Control S and save, or I can go to the file menu and click on the save button. I hope you are getting. So in order to do the same task, in order to save that file, I am having more than one ways to do that interaction. Okay, fine. So that's what this multi-threading principle of flexibility is. And we should have this in our design. Next principle is about task migratability. Okay, it means I should be able to transfer or pass the responsibility for any task whichever I am doing currently or executing between user and system. For example, if I'm writing in a simple doc in a word processor, and nowadays, or every application whichever allows us to work with the documents, they do some spelling checks, right? So while doing the spelling check, the control is on the system, right? We are not doing that spell check. System is doing that spell check, right? But it should not be completely transferred to the system, because if you observe many times in Word, when we write name of the person, okay, so it gives a red underline, right? It says that it is grammatically incorrect. So at that time we should take control at our side, and we should say that ignore this time or ignore all. We do that most of the times. Okay, so like that, the feasibility or the feature to pass the responsibility of doing or performing the task should be there, sometimes at user side, sometimes at system sides. Okay, same example which I discussed earlier, flight wala, control of aircraft deck, right? At some time it should be at user side, at some time it should be done by the system itself. Okay, so this is the flexibility principle. Next, go to the two more principles of flexibility. So fourth one is substitutive. So what this principle is about, talking about, so it is about allowing the equivalent values of input and output that should be able to substitute for each other. I mean to say, at some time, whatever input I am giving, that should be allowed to change with another. Let's take example of a Word document, and if I want to set a margin for my page in the document. Okay, so if I go to the setting, it allows me to enter the values either in terms of inches or in terms of centimeters. Okay, this is for input expression. So it allows me to substitute either to enter the margin for your page in terms of centimeters or in terms of inches, or even if I want to calculate, for example, total is 8 inches, 8.5 inches, for example, and I want to set my text in within only 6 inches. Then whatever remaining inches are, I want to give it for a margin. That's all. That also I could do in the word processors. Okay. Now, if I want to talk about a representation multiplicity, then how it could be? representation multiplicity in terms of substitute principle. For example, if I want to check the temperature of any object, maybe room temperature or whatever. So if I want to represent that temperature in terms of digits or numbers, numeric value, I can use the digital thermometer and I can represent that temperature in terms of numeric value. But if I just want to notice the trend, right? Yesterday, how much was the temperature, and today, what is the temperature? Then I can represent that temperature in the form of graph, right? क्योंकि मुझे actual numeric value से कुछ interest नहीं है. I just want to see the trend. Is the temperature increasing or is temperature decreasing? So in that case, I can use graph as a representation for my data or value. Okay, so that is nothing but a representation multiplicity. Next, if I want to talk about or give example for equal opportunity, means it is talking about your data in terms of input and output. Means whatever interaction I am doing with machine, sometimes it could be taken as input from my side, or whatever I am giving, that should be treated as output. If I want to give example, let's take example of a spreadsheet or worksheet. Okay, so if I'm giving some numbers in the cells of the sheets, so some cells are accepting input as a number from my side, and one cell is just doing addition. Let's take example. I just want to calculate total expenditures in a month of a fib. So I will design a spreadsheet, right? I will add one simple formula of sum to one cell, right? So few cells are acting or behaving as input because I am giving my values. Okay, for expenditure calculation, I am entering how many rupees I have spent in first week, second week, third week, likewise. And one specific cell is working as an output for me because that cell is giving me total amount of rupees that I have spent in the last month. I hope you are getting. Okay. Second example, if I want to give for this, let's take a graphical drawing package. Okay. And I'm drawing a line in that. Let us take example of Qt Creator. Most of you have used that for your graphics practicals. Okay. So suppose I have application and it allows me to draw line. So I can use inbuilt draw line method, and that application is giving me कि उस line का total length कितना है जो आपने draw किया है. So basically what happened? I give input to draw line and machine gives me output length of line. Okay. In another sense, that machine also allows me, or that application also allows me to give input as length of line. How much wider line you want to draw. So maybe I can give two endpoints of the line, x1, y1, x2, y2, and then that application will draw line for me. Okay, that is example for equal opportunity, right? So whatever value you are treating as input, that should also be treated as output and vice versa. Okay, the next principle of flexibility is customizability. Now, customizability is nothing but a modifiability of the user interface by user or system. Means, can you modify the interaction by user or by system? So, if user is able to do modification, it is called as adaptability. And if system is able to do some modifications in the interface, it is called as adaptivity. Okay, let's take example of adaptability. Then I can say user's ability to give input and output. Okay, is user able to do that at its own? Then we will call it as adaptability. And adaptivity का example जिसमें system कुछ modifications कर रहा है. Let's take example of macros in programming language. Right. I hope you are getting. So if you are writing a simple C++ program in Eclipse, by default, if you select if you want to create C++ project, then by default the macro or preprocessor directive is already written over there, right? Hash include iostream dot h or hash include iostream and then next line using namespace std. Right, so that is done by system. So that is given by system to the user automatically. Okay, so that is called as adaptivity. And in other case, adaptability means every time user has to give some input or user has to give something to take the output from the system, right? So this automatic customization of the user interface should be allowed either by user some of the times or by the system some of the times. Okay, got it? So these were the 5 sub principles for flexibility. Next, we will go for